quite open or vocal, if I can use that word, even on your social media, talking about therapy, going for therapy, and getting help with some of these mental health challenges that stem from the arena of business that you're in. When you first realized that this was something that you needed to get that help for, seek therapy, was therapy the first option that came to mind? And then when you kind of made the decision to start going for therapy, were there any negative feelings that you had to fight through to actually go? Yes.
So I think it's funny how I got into that space. So again, I think I told you just before we started this, I did have an interview with a friend of mine, Peter, in the one I did talk about. Peter is actually the one that kind of brought this awareness. And this was it wasn't even right in the middle of my low moments. It was towards the end of it, right? And I was like, I'm good, I'm over it.
Yeah.
And then I did have this interview with Peter. Actually, that was the first time I came out openly to talk about the effects that this experience had on my mental health and what I went through. So I did have this interview with Peter, and then after it was done, he shared it with me. And then I actually didn't know that the same interview that I had with him, he went to have another interview with Dr. Maria Akani, who is my therapist and a friend now, So I listened to my interview, and then I listened to think Dr. Akani come and talk about it. I was like, oh snap, I actually didn't realize this, So, and then from that moment, I was like, you know what? I'd love to talk more about this. I'd love to share my story, and I believe that a lot of other people that actually have similar experiences, and just to get those stories out. So I decided to have to organize group therapy sessions for entrepreneurs. I don't know if I'm allowed to say what it was called on this channel.
You can. Maybe
I can? You bleep it out.
We'll bleep it out, because I remember this. And I remember, first of all, let me just tell you, you are a creative genius in my mind, because I remember seeing the graphic, a little JPEG thing that you posted on your social media, and I was like, this is the perfect name, because that's what it is. What else can you call it? That is what it is. And I remember Caesar came to one of your sessions. We were supposed to come together. I'm telling you, I really wanted to come, but then we had Caleb, and he was still a baby, and we didn't have anyone to leave him with. So I was like, okay, at least one of us can go, and then come and we'll come and share the experience and stuff. But yes, you can say the name.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so so I decided to call it happens. Fill in the blanks. But so I think called it that. And why I called it that was I was just letting people know, I was like, look, if you're in this space, if you're in business, this is going to happen. Yeah. And I'd like to offer something that might help you, you know what I mean, navigate the space. So I spoke to Dr. Akani to come and give this talk. We had quite a good response from people. And then initially I thought it was just going to be one session, right? And then I realized that we actually needed multiple sessions. Yeah. So we did group therapy sessions. And by the way, I thought I didn't need it, because I'm cool. I'm good. I'm out of my worst spot, right? So I'm good. I don't need to attend. So the second session, I was like, let me just go and check how it's going. And then I sat in, and Dr. Akani was there, and I was thinking, do I need this? And I remember the first session, she gave out an exercise, right? And the exercise was write a letter to your younger self, or write a letter to yourself when you are in a certain state, right? And I was like, okay, if I'm going to do this assignment, I might as well be part of the class. So that was my first time getting sitting in a professional therapy session. I was like, okay, you know what? I'm going to do it. And I remember having a tough time writing to myself, because remember, up to that moment, I thought the experience I had a few years prior is what was going to define my life, right? I'm going to be known by this low moment that I had. That's me, And it took me about 9 months 9-10 months to actually finally pen
Wow.
that letter to myself.
Wow.
You know, and thank God I wrote it at the end of the therapy sessions, you know, because in all of those months, like, I had to confront a lot of stuff about myself. I had to, like, forgive myself. You know, I had to forgive certain people. I, like, had to deal with a lot of clutter that was in my life, you know. And like, it's so funny, like, at the end, when I wrote that letter, so initially I was mad at myself then, but at the end of all the sessions, like, I was not mad at myself the way I was initially, right? I actually spoke to myself with compassion, with grace, and I clapped for myself.
That you made it through.
Exactly, you know, and I was like, and actually what I told myself from back then was like, thank you that you made the choices that you made. Thank you that you made the decisions that you made. Yes, it was painful, but thank you that you did what you did. Because if you hadn't done that, you wouldn't be who you are today, you know? And, like, that's something which I don't think I was ever going to do, right? Because, like, I had so much anger, you know, like, you know what I mean? Like, towards myself, you know, like, I thought I was this bad person. I was this, you know, but yeah, like, I look back and I was like, wow, you were actually so brave. You know, yes, you did make mistakes, but you are actually brave. Yeah, so I had a very good time of therapy, like group therapy, in that period of time. A number of people got a lot of help, you know, and, like, up to date, like, I still tell people, like, look, go and see someone, you know what I mean? Like, the same way that you like to keep health, I think, healthy, and you go to the gym and you run and you do all of that stuff, is the same way that you should look at I think mental health experts, you know what I mean? Like, it's the same way that you should also look after your mental health. You know, it's very important. I mean, like, if you don't look after yourself, like, I think physically, you are prone to diseases. And it's the same. If you don't take care of your mental health, you'll be prone to mental illnesses. You know, and some are kind of, like, irreversible. You know, I mean, that it's a wide subject. Obviously, there are so many factors that think can be discussed. You know, like, there's a clinical side of it as well, which I'm not an expert to speak to, but, like, I mean, like, just like any other wellness, even spiritual wellness, right? Like, if you don't pray, if you don't read your Bible and pray every day, I mean, like, that's gonna mess up your spiritual life as well. If you don't fellowship with other believers, that's gonna mess up your spiritual life. It's the same way with mental health as well, right? So the same effort that we put in our spiritual lives, the same effort that we put in our physical health, is the same effort that we need to apply as well in our mental health. So and for me, that goes even beyond just you being an entrepreneur, right? And I do advocate for people. I mean, like, pressure is going to hit you, right? And whether you're in business, you are not, from so many angles, right? It could be from your relationship, from your marriage, and other relationships with other people around you. It could be your family, you know what I mean? Like, I think it could be your kids. Like, ish happens, right? And it comes from everywhere, you know? So it is important once in a while to just check in. And I do actually advocate, and I do encourage a lot of people to, and, like, just spend some time and check in, you know?
After all that you've said and everything that you've gone through, obviously you haven't gone into detail, but from what you've shared, we can tell how
you know me,
how traumatic this thing was. Like, why didn't you just quit?
Quit and do what?
I don't know. Like,
that's it.
like somebody watching would probably be thinking, Alinani, that would have been the smart move. Just quit while you're ahead, sort out all your problems, pay your Nkongole, and just walk away from this. But why have you chosen to continue in this arena of entrepreneurship? Even knowing that you're going to have to contend with these occupational hazards that we've uncovered.
So I'm going to tell you something that kept me through that period, right? I always knew God was going to see me through. And I remember telling God that you have a reason and you got something that's planned for me. So I'm not going to give up. I'm going to hang on because I know you see me through this and you prepared something for me at the end. So like in my mind, I was just like, you know what? After all this I'm going through, I can't wait to see what you have for me. Right? Like that's what like kept me through. Even in moments when I would question God, right? Even when I would fail to pray, even when I would be mad at God, even I'll be going through whatever hurt, emotional pain, psychological hurt, and like whatever it is that I was feeling, I was just like, you know what? I was like holding on to that one hope I had, right? I was like, I can't wait to see what's at the end of this thing, you know? So it's my anticipation for better, for like what God had, like that kept me through that period. So that's why I couldn't quit, you know? And then a backstory to like me being in the creative space. I think shout out to the late Bishop Chikoti in Chingola. So it was 2008. I remember I had gone to Chingola with I think someone from Campus Fellowship. We went to minister in Chingola on Christmas Eve. I remember it was the first time I met Rachel, the singer, and the other guys from that group called the Cherubs. We actually went to their church at Evangel Church in Chingola. Whilst there, I met a guy called Ishmael Chikoti. He was pastor's kid, so he invited me to his church on Christmas. They're like, you should come to church. And then I went to his church. It was a Christmas service, and I loved the thing Chikotis. And again, like, so the period when I was like, I'm doing t-shirts and like still trying to find myself, right? And they read Isaiah, talking about Jesus, you know. And there's one scripture which says that he's a wonderful counselor. Yes. And the Bishop Chikoti said like, no, it was the wife actually who said like what counselor means in this context is that he is the chief strategist, right? And I was like, bang, that's what my business is about. Because remember, I was like being a creative, right? I was like, you know what? Since he is a chief strategist, he's the one that's going to lead me into all truth. He's the one that's going to give me ideas, right? Like all ideas come from him. Yeah. He is the author of creativity, right? Another story about this straight up another day about that. But anyway, yeah. So like that's where all of these things happening, but like that's the moment I believe I had that like stamp of approval from God and say, okay, think this is your word and think this is for you, go for it, right? So I know that my beginning was rooted in God. Right. So if I needed to quit, he has to tell me that it's time up, you know. And I don't think God has ever told me like, okay, now give up and do some other stuff. Yeah.
So I don't remember where I heard this phrase from like originally, but it stuck with me, and I think I even added it to the invite that I sent you to come here, and that is that our vulnerability is our superpower. And the Bible does tell us that we overcome by the blood of the Lamb, but also by the word of our testimony. Okay, so how do you think owning your story and sharing your story has helped you become a better entrepreneur? And what do you think people who are not doing that what challenges are they going to face by not owning their story and not being open about challenges that they may be facing as they run their businesses?
Earlier on, I did mention that I believe I'm a steward and not an owner, right? So I think it's something that's been given to me. It's only right that I should share it, because the one that's given it to me does expect me to give it out, right? One of my favorite artists, Lecrae, says, I'm not ashamed to tell my story because God wrote it.
Wow.
Right? And what that does for me is that it takes away the responsibility from me and puts it on the writer of the story. Right. And that's God. Wow. So that's why I'm not ashamed to tell my story, because I didn't write it. You know, I'm just a character in the story. I think God wrote it. So that's why it's easy for me to share it. And then again, I believe my life is not for me, right? And anything that is going to help the next person, I'm all for it, you know. And how that helps me become a better entrepreneur as well is it just makes me be real and realistic. Right? And I do have these conversations with a number of people, like especially like people just starting out in business, coming to ask for thing advice. You know, like I can tell, like, oh, okay, I do understand how you're seeing things, but and there's actually a number of things that you haven't paid attention to. You know, and then through my story again, like I always use my story. I'm like, okay, look, I think what you want to do is A, B, C, D, well and good. But have you considered this? Have you considered that? You know, and then I use my story, and I don't use it to like put out your flame, right? Like I just want you to be aware. I want you not to make the mistakes I made, right? And then also for me as an entrepreneur now, right? Like I'm not easily moved by things. You know what I mean, right? Like a deal that might look so good will come my way. I'm like, nah. I'll pass on this, right? Even the way I make decisions now is much more, much more informed, right? So like, I'm not going to just rush to like commit to certain things. I can say no to like certain things, you know, and that also helps just make sure like, you know what, I don't want to go down this path and have some stress. Okay, but again, as much as you might be cautious like that. And think, like I said, there's some times when you just don't know what's going to happen. But I'm ready for anything that happens now, because remember, someone told me this in high school. Shout out to Malapwa. He said, life is not about what happens to you, right? It's about how you respond to what happens to you. You know, so now I can take up certain risks, and if the outcome is an undesired one, the way I handle it is much more different than I would have handled it 5, 6, 7 years ago, right? So now, like, if ish happens, I know, like, oh, okay, let me breathe, let me look at the issues. And remember earlier on, I did talk about honesty, right? So I'm like, okay, I'm going to approach it with the honesty that it deserves, right? So I'm going to be truthful to myself. Right? If I can do something within a week, I'll be like, okay, I can do it within a week. I'm not going to say I can do it overnight, right? Like I'll give myself that amount of time. And remember, if you're a business owner, your mind and your peace of mind is like the biggest asset that you have. And especially if you're in a line of business like the one I'm in, right? Like your mind or my mind is my biggest asset, right? Because that's where all the ideas come from.
Exactly.
So I have to make sure that my mind has all the peace that it needs and is flowing nicely. Because if it's stressed, bro, I'll be making mistakes like back to back. You know. So my experience, and then acknowledging my role in my experience, you know, and everything that a thing happened, it is now able to like help me make decisions honestly and make decisions better. You know. So. Yeah.
So for the entrepreneur out there that they've had a track record in business, but stuff has happened, you know, and things haven't been going so well, but they're trying to save face. What would you say to them about that? Is that going to help them? Because there's a fan coming and the stuff going to hit the fan. So what would you say to that person that's like, no, like I'll keep it together, you know, I'll present this picture until I work out the kinks behind the scenes. Because it sounds like from your story you tried to do that for a period and it didn't work.
Yeah.
So for the people out there that are not wanting to own the reality of where they are, whether it is being honest to themselves, being honest to their clients, being honest to their sponsors, or you know, what would you say to them?
Look, if you're trying to save face, to me that communicates you're lying, right? You are not being honest with yourself.
I'm just delaying the truth.
you are still living a lie. But I'm going to tell you something, right? I'm going to tell you something, and like this is a question which no one has an answer to, right? And it's a question of when do you give up, right? I know. So now I know there are people out there who tell you don't give up, you know. But there's times when giving up is the right thing to do.
Yeah.
Again, it depends what the condition is. It depends what the story is. It depends what the issue is, right? So you might look at me and be like, no, but I didn't give up, right? But like that's different from my story, okay? And there are sometimes when you're in a business deal or a business venture that you actually have to give up and go try something else, okay? But again, there are a lot of variables involved for you to make that decision.
Yeah.
And no one can ever come and tell you to say, give up. So you might either have to re-strategize. Okay, so first accept the truth, right? And then just face it. Then re-strategize. In you re-strategizing, it might mean you completely walking away from it and going to pursue something else. Yeah. Or it might mean you just cutting down certain things around the same idea to figure out like, okay, what's the best way for this idea to actually work out, you know? And I think that's where you also need to have people around you that you trust. Yeah. You know, like people that you can go to and actually tell the truth. You know, my thing with my story, and one thing that actually kept my ish like prolonged, right? It's because one, I didn't face the music when it happened, right? I was not telling the truth when it happened. I thought that, oh, you know what? I can actually get out of this in the next month or two. Yeah. You know, like I just need one thing to work out right. Yeah. You know? So like saving face doesn't help, you know? And something that you need to understand as well as a business person, because you know that as a business, your ultimate goal is to make profit, right? And if there's one thing that's hard to do, let me say it. If there's one thing that's hard to do, is to make money, right? Like making money is hard. Yeah. There are for you to make that one kwacha profit. Yeah. There are so many things that need to work out right.
And line up just right.
They need to line up right for that one kwacha profit to come out like bang. Yeah. Right? And I think that's the biggest problem that we have nowadays. Like people don't understand or appreciate business processes. Right? Like money just doesn't fall from heaven like manna. I know some people pull off miracle monies, but hey, I don't know how they do it. Yeah. But like there's no such a thing as miracle money. Yeah. Right? Like there are processes that have to be respected for you to make money at the end of the day, you know? And those processes, unfortunately, don't work like overnight or thing randomly. You know, like I'll give you an example, and this is a situation that most of us find ourselves in, right? Like when you borrow money from money lenders or loan sharks, right? Someone comes to you, just think about this. Someone comes to you and say, okay, you want X amount of money? Okay, cool. I'm going to loan it to you at 50% in 4 weeks, right? In 4 weeks. So now what that means for you, that's borrowing, right? Say I'm borrowing a 10,000 kwacha. I need to pay back 15,000 kwacha in 4 weeks. Yeah. What I'm actually saying is at the end of 4 weeks, right, I need to make at minimum 15,000 kwacha. Okay, how am I going to make that 15,000 kwacha? Okay, if you are getting that money to invest, what business is going to give you back a 50% profit in 4 weeks? Right? And if at all you do have a business that's giving you 50% returns in 4 weeks, then you have no business in the first place going to borrow that money. Yeah.
Just wait it out, whatever it is.
Yes, like whatever it is, just work it out, right? Oh, okay, let's say you don't have that first 15,000, that first 10,000 kwacha that you need to put in. So then you borrow this and then you pay it back, right? Then I'm assuming you've actually made 100%, profit. Yeah. Because if you're going to pay back 15,000, you need to have some extra money that you're going to remain with, right? So then whatever business it is that you're doing is going to make you back that money, right? And I don't know if there's a business that does that. So, and that's something that we need to start respecting as business people, to respect processes. Now, the trouble today is, again, like with the whole saving face thing and trying to like put up an image, is we count other people's money.
Yes.
Right? Because you think my other friend is making money, or that person seems to be making money, and in your head you've already calculated that guy's probably worth this, so you know what I mean, right? Like we are caught up in this comparison trap. Right, you don't know what the next guy does.
No.
You know, but again, because of things, social media, again, everybody seems to be going out on holiday in Dubai. Everybody's driving nice cars. Everybody's building. Everybody's doing all of this. And that pressure is real, by the way. That pressure is so real. Yeah. Right, that pressure is so real. So then you're thinking, okay, if those guys are doing that, then they're probably doing something that I'm not. So then you now put yourself in pressure to try and live up to what you think other people are actually doing. Yeah. And what that does is that it just brings you problems, because you are disobeying the processes and the natural laws of business, right? You now want to work out miracles, literally, right? Because you're thinking, okay, if those guys are spending X amount of money to go on holiday, it means I need to work 100 times hard. Now, if I look at what I'm making now, it means that I can only afford a holiday in the next 4 or 5 years. Yeah. Then you put yourself in pressure, and then you start stressing yourself.
And then people even begin to blame God. No, but God, you said in your word. They pick out all these scriptures and then they misappropriate them. Yeah. And some people either have a strained relationship with the Lord, or even walk away from the Lord because they're like, well, you're doing it for that person, but you're not doing it for me. Yeah. So that pressure is very real. It's very real. But as a business person, right, you need to understand exactly like what business are you in, what sector are you in, right? Where is the value? Because you make your money off the value that you think provide, right? So understand what that value is, right? And figure out, okay, how do I bring this value to market? Okay, if I'm making 1 kwacha off one value, it means if I want to make 10 kwacha profit, I need to bring 10 of these values to the market. Yeah. And how do I do it? Again, like I said, there are so many processes at the back that you need to put in place, right? Are you able to produce more of whatever it is that you're producing, right? And I'll give you an example. If you're like selling bread, for example, and there's a market for bread, right? And you started off with making 4 loaves of bread. And if you want to make more money, it means that you need to do more than the 4 loaves that you're doing. So then you go back again to say, okay, like what is it going to cost me to make 10 loaves of bread? For me to make 10 times more than the money that I'm making after taxes. And paying
paying people. Everybody. Like what, you know what I mean? Like one thing that we don't understand actually is cost. Yeah. Like we don't know what the real cost. And for most business people, especially small businesses, like we don't understand what the real cost of running our businesses is. You know, because you use your pocket money to put in the business, and you think that your real cost is this. Like, no, take out the money that you get from the pocket and put in the business. Then you realize that your real cost is actually this. Yeah. You know, so as a business person, know what your real cost is. I don't know if I'm answering your question, but but I feel late. I feel late to talk about this. Keep going. But yeah, like just know what your real cost is. Your real cost is after paying off. If you've got a team, you've got workers, pay them off. I'm gonna give you an interesting story. Like I was telling my wife a few months ago, like we need to make a decision, right? It's like, okay, I need to get some more people on the team as a business, you know. And then I was was like, look, if we're going to have this more people on the team, that means that our cost is going to go up, you know. And obviously, being the business owner, it means that I can only get paid after everybody else is paid, right? And then like month 1, we paid out, and I was like, ish, did I really need to to get some more people on the board? Because I'm thinking like, I've given out a lot of money and then I'm remaining with nothing, you know. But again, like that's the cost, right? But again, what I've gained from incurring that cost is far much more, right?
It takes time.
But it takes exactly. So I'm like, okay, we have to weather it, you know, for the actual time when actually we are going to produce more and then get more and then make more money. But again, like that's the price of, I think that's the price that you pay for running a business, right? So other people might seem to be doing well, but you are busy. You know what they say about like a tree, like or a plant, right? Like the trees that last longer spend a huge time having their roots going down, and then before everything else can come up and people will be like, oh wow.
So it looks like this thing we planted, nothing is happening. It's not shooting up, it's not sprouting, but it's doing all the work below the surface.
But your roots are getting deeper, you know, and obviously that speaks to the foundational thing, whatever it is that you're doing. But ultimately, like, know and respect the processes that happen in business. Like, business is not magic, right? And no wonder. And do you know why CEOs of like huge corporations get paid a lot of money? They get paid a lot of money because they have to think strategically, right? So you might see a CEO just driving a big car and think like, but that guy, like, he doesn't do that. He has to think through all the units of the business, right? Is our marketing working? Is our this working? Is this working? So he is responsible for making sure that the processes that are being used are actually working at the end of the day for that business to have the revenue that it does, and for him to get that big fat check at the end of the month. You know, so, but we don't think like that for small businesses. We just think money is going to come. You know, like, you can't even tell, like, the money you're getting, like, this is just gross, right? Like, this is your gross revenue. The things that you need to pay off for you to know exactly what your real profit is. You know, I think most of us, and like a lot of people get into business because they saw a gross amount. It's like, what?
You make all that money.
These guys are paying you this. Let me get him. And in your mind, what you're thinking is like, this guy's been given some amount of money. It's like, no, you don't know what the real profit is off of that chunk of money this person has received. You know, and as entrepreneurs as well, I think most of the times we get carried away with the gross amount that you see, you know, and yet you forget that actually it's only a fraction of this gross amount. That's actually the real profit, you know. Wow,
you've shared so many nuggets, like so many nuggets. But as we wind up, if you could say one last thing to an up-and-coming entrepreneur out there, just to encourage them or challenge their way of thought, what would it be?
So I'm going to make this cliche statement, or it might sound cliche statement, but trust the process. I know so many people say this, and someone said, yes, I've been trusting the process, but when will the process trust me? Actually, that was my wife. I keep trusting the process. But like, trust the process, and always remember that it's a journey. So enjoy it as it happens, even through the low moments. I know you said that I should say one thing, but yeah, like, enjoy the journey, man. Like, enjoy the journey. So many things happen, and something that's very important: have people that you can have honest conversations with. I mean, like, have people that will tell you when something is not working, and then have people that you can be vulnerable enough with to tell them how you feel, whether it's highs or lows. But I just have people that you can meet with and talk to. Shout out to two of my friends, Musonda and Musonda. We do meet up once in a while and have these conversations around. Okay, now I feel like I need to look at you. But like, like him, like the two Musondas, we meet and talk and like just challenge each other in business. One is a pharmacist and is running pharmacy shops. The other one is in real estate. So like, we are all in different spaces, right? But the principles of business are the same. You know, like, regardless of what business you are in, the principles are the same. And learn the principle of what you're doing. Like, I honestly think like that's one of the most important things. Like, understand the principles of your businesses, understand and trust the process. I don't know if I can say.
Yeah. Thank you.
Or if I can be much more clear than that.
Thank you.
But I hope someone gets it.
Yeah, I'm sure they will. And more from everything else that you've shared. Thank you so much for being here. To all the famous warriors out there, remember, whether it's in entrepreneurship, whether it's in life, our chance to fight is a privilege, and you guys are definitely worth the fight.